All right, strap yourself in because we're diving headfirst into one of the most talked about, most analyzed, most debated events in American history, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, November 22nd, 1963. A day that, I mean, even decades later, it still feels like we're trying to wrap our heads around what really happened. You've got the Warren Commission, the official investigation.
Right, right.
They concluded Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, but honestly,
Yeah.
the sheer volume of unanswered questions, it's practically spawned a whole industry of its own, the JFK conspiracy theories.
And it's hard to deny the appeal, right? I mean, we've all seen the footage, the motorcade, the Texas School Book Depository,
Oh, yeah.
the panic. It makes you wonder, what if there's something more to the story? Like, take the magic bullet theory the Warren Commission put forward.
Yeah.
One bullet causing all those wounds to both President Kennedy and Governor Connolly.
Right.
That's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, it is. And it's no wonder that the magic bullet theory is one of the most fiercely debated parts of that whole official story. Critics say, I mean, the bullet would have had to practically defy physics.
Seriously.
It's like it'd be zigzagging through the air to do that kind of damage.
Exactly. And it's these, inconsistencies, these things that just don't add up that make people dig deeper. Explore other explanations. If the puzzle pieces aren't fitting, maybe, just maybe, we're looking at the wrong puzzle to begin with.
I think that's a great way to look at it, yeah. And speaking of different puzzles, or I guess pictures in this case, maybe the most well-known one, is the idea of a second gunman.
Oh, yeah.
Right, positioned on that infamous grassy knoll overlooking Dealey Plaza.
No, the grassy knoll. It's basically become like the poster child for JFK conspiracy theory, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I can see why. I mean, if you're looking for a spot with a clear shot at the motorcade, the grassy knoll's practically screening Sniper's Nest, isn't it? Like right out of a movie.
It is, and we can't forget that eyewitness accounts claiming gunfire from that exact spot have been like a cornerstone of this whole theory. If there was a second shooter, the grassy knoll makes, a chilling kind of strategic sense.
But hold on a sec. Don't we always hear about how unreliable eyewitnesses can be?
Uh-huh.
Especially in a chaotic, high-stress situation like that?
Absolutely.
I mean, wouldn't people's memories be all messed up? Adrenaline, shock, the whole 9 yards?
You're 100% right to be cautious about those eyewitness accounts. In a moment like the JFK assassination, with all that stress, perception can be skewed. Memory's definitely not foolproof. It's a major challenge for researchers to try and sift through all those accounts.
Yeah.
Trying to separate what people genuinely observed from, well, let's say creatively reconstructed memories.
So the grassy knoll testimonies, we got to take those with a grain of salt then.
More like a whole shaker. It's really about looking at the big picture, not getting fixated on any single piece of evidence that might not be all that reliable on its own.
Okay, starting to see how tangled this web really is. We've got the magic bullet, the grassy knoll, and of course we can't forget the usual suspects.
Right.
The CIA, the mafia.
Yeah, those classic conspiracy theory figures. And they both had potential motives, at least according to the theories that are out there.
Right.
The CIA, for instance, weren't exactly on the best of terms with Kennedy after that whole Bay of Pigs fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, that was the attempt to overthrow Fidel Castro in Cuba, the one Kennedy gave the green light to.
The Bay of Pigs, what a disaster.
Total disaster. Some theories suggest the CIA saw Kennedy as, weak, a liability, even after that.
Yeah.
And they might have wanted him gone, wanted to protect their own interests.
Okay, so that's the CIA angle. What about the mafia? They weren't exactly Kennedy's fan club either, were they?
You're thinking of Robert Kennedy, JFK's brother?
Right, right.
He was leading a serious crackdown on organized crime as Attorney General. And, well, going after the mob tends to make enemies. Some theories suggest the mafia might have seen eliminating both Kennedy brothers as, a way to regain their control.
Wow, high-stakes revenge. But wait, there's more, isn't there? Cuba and the KGB?
Yeah, they get thrown around in some of these theories, too.
Right.
And, it's understandable, given the Cold War context, right? Cuba obviously had reason to want payback after the Bay of Pigs invasion. And the KGB, well, they were always looking for a chance to destabilize the U.S.
It's like in a twisted way. It kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The world was on edge back then. Nuclear war, always a possibility. And then, on top of that, you assassinate a young, charismatic president. It's like the whole world shifted on its axis.
Absolutely. And that whole atmosphere, that uncertainty, that fear, it's like fertile ground for conspiracy theories to take root. When the official explanation just doesn't cut it, people will naturally look for other narratives.
Yeah.
Ones that offer some kind of order, even if it's, even if it's based on speculation.
It's like we need a story.
Yeah.
even a dark one, to make sense of something so shocking and so senseless.
Right. And sometimes those darker stories, even without hard evidence, they just feel more believable than the official version.
So we've got rogue CIA agents, vengeful mobsters, Cuban spies, even the KGB potentially in the mix. But some theories go even further, don't they? Like suggesting the whole thing was orchestrated by, well, the U.S. government itself.
That's where things get really interesting and maybe a little unsettling. The idea that, it wasn't necessarily specific individuals, but powerful factions within the government
Yeah.
orchestrating the assassination, a shadowy network with its own agenda.
Whoa, hold on. We're talking about a conspiracy within the government. That's like straight out a spy thriller. But why? What would they gain by taking out their own president?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some theories suggest these factions, whether it's the military-industrial complex, intelligence agencies, or some other, shadowy group,
Yeah,
they might have seen Kennedy as a threat
a threat.
to their power, yeah. Maybe they were afraid of his policies, his attempts to de-escalate the Cold War.
Right.
Or maybe they just wanted to keep their grip on the levers of power.
So we're talking about a potential power grab with the assassination as a way to get rid of a leader who was, I don't know, getting a little too big for his britches?
That's one interpretation. And it taps into that, that deep-seated distrust of government that's kind of woven into the fabric of American history,
Yeah.
especially during the Cold War when secrecy and paranoia were practically like official policies.
Right, right. I could see how that atmosphere, combined with something as shocking as the JFK assassination, would, be the perfect breeding ground for these kinds of theories. It's like, if you can't trust your own government, who can you trust?
Exactly. And when the official explanation feels incomplete
Yeah.
or even, intentionally misleading, it's only natural for people to start filling in the blanks themselves.
Okay, so we've got the magic bullet theory, the glassy knoll, the CIA, the mafia, and now this idea of a conspiracy within the government itself? It's a lot to take in. Where do we even go from here?
I think the key is to remember that these are theories, not proven facts, right?
Right.
They're attempts to explain something that feels unexplainable, to create narratives that resonate with our need for understanding, even if those narratives aren't necessarily, based on solid evidence.
So are you saying the Warren Commission got it all wrong? That there was a conspiracy behind JFK's assassination?
I wouldn't go that far, but I think what we can say is that the fact that people are still fascinated by these theories, even decades later,
Yeah.
the fact that they still capture our imaginations, it says a lot about, our desire to find meaning in tragedy, our need to challenge authority when it feels like we're not getting the whole story.
It's like we're all detectives in a way, right? Drawn to these mysteries, trying to put the pieces together.
Yeah.
Trying to find our own version of the truth.
Exactly. And maybe that's the most important takeaway here.
What's that?
The JFK assassination, regardless of what we believe about the different theories, it reminds us that history isn't a static, closed book,
Oh, interesting.
It's an ongoing conversation, a dialogue between the past and the present, where we're always reevaluating what we think we know.
And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? The fact that we're still debating these events, poring over the evidence, trying to make sense of it all, even after all these years.
Exactly. It speaks to the power of this event to resonate across generations, to challenge our assumptions, to make us confront, just how complex history is and how elusive truth can be.
All right, so we've talked about some of the big players in the JFK assassination conspiracy theories, the CIA, the mafia, even factions within the government. But when we talk about evidence, what are we actually dealing with here? I mean, this was a long time ago.
Right. That's a really important point. We're talking about something that happened decades ago. So the evidence we have is, well, it's not exactly in pristine condition. You've got eyewitness testimonies, which, as we said, can be unreliable.
Yeah.
You've got a physical evidence that might have degraded over time or even been, let's say, tampered with over the years.
Right.
It's incredibly difficult to separate fact from fiction, especially with a case this high profile, one that's been analyzed and reinterpreted so many times.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces are missing, and the ones you do have might be from a completely different puzzle.
Yeah, a very messy puzzle, for sure. And then there's the whole issue of political agendas. I mean, let's be real. The JFK assassination was a deeply political event, and it's still a source of political debate today. That makes it incredibly hard to approach this topic objectively. Everyone seems to have an angle, a narrative they want to push.
So how do we even begin to make sense of all this conflicting information? If you were tasked with investigating the JFK assassination today, knowing all the challenges we've talked about, where would you even start?
That's a tough one. If I had to put on my detective hat for this, I'd probably start with what's considered the most objective evidence, the forensics. Ballistics reports, autopsy findings, the physical evidence collected at the scene. That's where you might find some hard data that can either back up or debunk some of these theories.
Okay, so start with the science, the hard facts. What about those eyewitness accounts? We can't just dismiss all of them, right?
No, of course not. They can offer valuable insights, but we have to approach them carefully. I'd be looking for patterns, consistencies across multiple accounts,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I'd be very aware of potential biases, influences that might have, colored those memories over time.
It's like you're trying to filter out all the noise, all the speculation and personal interpretations to get to the core of what really happened.
Exactly. It's a process of elimination, of carefully weighing each piece of evidence, considering how reliable it is within the bigger picture.
But with so many theories out there, so much information, it's easy to get lost in the weeds. For our listeners who are fascinated by this mystery and want to explore it further, what advice would you give them? Where should they start?
The most important thing is to be critical of your sources. There's a ton of information online, but not all of it is credible. Stick to reputable sources like scholarly articles, books by respected historians, documentaries that offer a balanced view of the evidence.
So basically, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Good advice for life in general,
Exactly. And remember, approach this topic with an open mind.
right?
Be willing to consider different perspectives, even ones that challenge your own views.
It's about embracing the mystery, the uncertainty, realizing that there might not be a single, satisfying answer to this puzzle.
Absolutely. The JFK assassination, it's like a historical Rorschach test. People see what they want to see in the evidence,
Yeah.
what fits their own worldview. That's part of what makes it so fascinating, so enduring.
It's a reminder that history isn't always neat and tidy, that there are often more questions than answers, and that the search for truth is a process.
Well said. And speaking of the search for truth, there's another fascinating aspect to this whole conspiracy theory thing we haven't really touched on, the psychology behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we so drawn to these alternative explanations? Why do they have such a hold on our imaginations?
That's a great question. I mean, I get it. Conspiracy theories can be kind of thrilling, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you're uncovering a secret, a truth that everyone else is missing.
There's definitely an element of that, but I think it goes deeper than just, the thrill of the unknown. Conspiracy theories often tap into our very human need for order.
Order.
Yeah, for a sense of control in a world that can feel really chaotic and unpredictable.
So, like, when something as shocking and senseless as the JFK assassination happens, our brains try to create a narrative, a story that makes it feel less random, less out of control.
Exactly. And often those narratives involve, powerful forces working behind the scenes,
Yeah.
pulling the strings. It's a way of like imposing a sense of agency onto an event that otherwise feels meaningless and random.
So we need to believe in someone, somewhere, is in charge, even if that someone is a shadowy group with bad intentions.
Right, and that's what makes conspiracy theories so potent. They offer a simple explanation, often a black and white explanation, for complex events. They give us someone to blame, someone to hold accountable.
Right.
And that can be psychologically comforting, even if it's not, based in reality.
But isn't there a danger in that kind of thinking? If we start believing that everything is a conspiracy, does that erode our trust in, institutions, in each other?
That's a valid concern. Conspiracy theories can be a slippery slope, leading to distrust of legitimate authority and even, in some cases, fueling extremism.
So how do we strike a balance between healthy skepticism and, like, falling down the rabbit hole of paranoia and distrust?
I think the key is to be discerning,
Okay.
to approach these theories with critical thinking skills, a willingness to consider evidence from multiple sources. It's about recognizing the difference between, questioning the official narrative and just blindly accepting unfounded claims.
So it's about being more thoughtful about the information we consume,
Yes,
about learning to filter out the noise and focus on what's actually credible.
exactly. It's about being willing to challenge our own assumptions, to consider different viewpoints, and to have those conversations even when they're uncomfortable.
It's a lot of work, but it feels more important now than ever.
I agree, and maybe that's the most valuable thing that's come out of the JFK assassination and all the conspiracy theories around it.
What do you mean?
They force us to confront the complexities of history, the limits of what we know, and how important critical thinking is, especially in a world where information is everywhere and so easily manipulated.
It's a reminder that the truth is out there, but it's rarely simple or straightforward. We have to be willing to dig deeper, to question, and to be okay with not having all the answers.
Beautifully put. And sometimes the journey of seeking the truth is just as valuable as the truth itself.
It's wild, right? How one single event, like the JFK assassination, can still generate so much debate and intrigue even after all these years.
It's a testament to the power of mystery. We're just wired to be drawn to those unanswered questions, especially when it's such a pivotal moment in history and a figure like JFK.
It's true. And as we've been talking about the JFK assassination, it's not just about the event itself. It's about how we look at history, the stories we tell ourselves, the role of critical thinking, especially now when we're bombarded with information from every direction.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that history isn't some, fixed thing. It's a living conversation, always evolving as new evidence pops up, new perspectives come to light.
And these conspiracy theories, whether they're true or not, they kind of force us to be part of that conversation, don't they?
Yeah,
Make us wrestle with the complexities of the past and accept that there might not be any easy answers.
absolutely. They challenge us to think critically, question what we think we know, and really be careful about the information we take in.
So for our listener, the one who's been with us on this deep dive, what do we want them to walk away with? What's that lasting impression we're hoping for?
I hope they leave with, a deeper understanding of the JFK assassination as a historical event, but also as this cultural phenomenon that's still shaping how we see the world.
And maybe a renewed sense of how important critical thinking is, especially when it comes to navigating history and all the information out there these days.
Exactly. We want them to feel empowered.
Yeah.
Empowered to question, to explore, and to draw their own conclusions based on the evidence.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into JFK assassination conspiracy theories, if you could leave our listener with just one thought, one question to keep in mind as they continue their own exploration, what would it be?
I'd ask them, what does this enduring fascination with the JFK assassination, with all these different conspiracy theories, what does it tell us about ourselves? About our need to find meaning, our search for truth, and maybe even our relationship with power?
That's a great question, and one that I think will stick with them long after this episode's over. It makes you think, not just about the past, but about now,
Yeah.
how we deal with information, with history, and with the world around us.
Exactly. It reminds us that the JFK assassination isn't just some event in the past. It's like a mirror reflecting our anxieties, our hopes, and our search for understanding.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you to continue your own exploration. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of JFK assassination conspiracy theories.